Welcome to the Seattle Investors Club podcast with Julie Clark and Joe Bauer, where we share the nuts and bolts of real estate investing from our 20-plus years in the industry. Sit back, relax, listen, and immediately take action. Are you ready? Here we go.
Welcome to the Nuts and Bolts of Real Estate Investing podcast. My name is Joe Bauer, and I'm here with my co-host, Julie Clark. Julie, how are you doing today?
Joe, I'm doing exceptionally well today. We've got a beautiful sunshine day ahead of us here in the Seattle area. A knock on wood, I think I personally have 3 transactions squeezing in under the wire today.
Ooh.
So that's hopefully going to carry me for a minute. So I'm feeling all excited about just one day at a time here, Joe. And yeah, feeling pretty good today. Where are you at?
Well, I'm still in Idaho, down by the river, and it's been crazy here. I think the last time we talked, it was a nice sunny 55 or 60 degree day. Yesterday, it snowed on us.
What?
And yeah, and today it's someplace in between, kind of like gray and Seattle-ish, if you will.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like some weird, like cosmic mapping thing, like when the news of the world is good, related to the weather. Like as soon as there's some crazy announcement, somebody should map that all out. Some correlation, as we're all going to be stuck here at home, we can watch the sundial to tell us what's going to happen on if we should, buy a property today or not, or something like that. I don't know. Life is getting weird.
You should launch that.
Weird. And we all are going to need to be sticking closer together, listening to good types of news, good places. That's the question is, I talked to some of my friends about, what's going on with the news. And some of my friends are like, angry. Don't watch the news. It's all a bunch of bullshit. Only look at the facts and the data. Look at the facts and the data. I'm only looking at these couple sites and all that kind of stuff. And, I get it. I get what they're saying, right? It's hard to know. Had some weird, news come out of a lender yesterday that turned out to be kind of like, retracted by the morning, like it was kind of like the sky is falling news. And I freaked out for a minute. And then by the morning, they're like, nope, we're rolling that back. So things are bouncing around all over the place. And, the best thing we can do is probably just talk to each other through masterminds and meetups online, and just through podcasts like this and plugging into your local community. And today we are going to do just that. This has been a long time in the coming, guys, for us here today on the Nuts and Bolts of Real Estate Investing. And I am stoked, beyond thrilled to have Jennifer Beatles on the podcast with us today. Jennifer Beatles, if you are in the Pacific Northwest, you've had your head in the sand if you haven't heard about Jennifer. And today we are going to pull your head out of the sand if that is the case and introduce you to our friend. Jennifer is the founder of Agents Invest, a brokerage that is focused on educating investors, like a lot of you that are listening today, as well as agents, as well as anybody who's thinking about is now a good time to invest. Her group connects investors, both experienced and new, with agent partners across the country to make out-of-state investing more simple and available to all of us. She also runs the Addicted to ROI meetups and has a blog for Addicted to ROI that you guys should all be jumping on right now. As soon as you get off this or while you're listening to this, I advise you guys all to jump on the Addicted to ROI group on Facebook. She's an experienced multifamily investor, actively investing before, during, and after the last recession. And currently she owns 239 units, unless that's gone up or down in the last short while here. And I'll say Jennifer says she credits her success partly to the decisions she has made when it matters the most in times like this. And as a recession becomes evident, which we all know is looming potentially out there now, she is here to help us and her Addicted to ROI community, to share what she's learned from her experiences of going through the last recession and what she's planning going ahead. So welcome, our friend Jennifer Beadles.
Well, thank you so much, Julie. Wow, that was such an in detail and incredible welcome. So thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here and chat with you guys today.
Well, I'd like to make myself sound thorough and smart, but I essentially just copyrighted that off one of your emails that you sent out. So props to you, actually, for being so eloquent. And as you always are, super impressed with, everything you do. And I think it's time for, the world to know about Jennifer Beadles. So let's see if we can help you move that one click further today as part of our community here at the Nuts and Bolts of Real Estate Investing. So let's get into it. Joe, let's kick this off and see if we can get some valuable information today and share that with all our friends.
Yeah, Jennifer, so we're really interested in hearing and learning more about our guests. So if you would take us back in the time machine and let us know how you grew up, where you grew up, and how that led you to where you are today, we would love to hear it.
Fantastic. Yeah, happy to share. All right, so first let's start. I am a third generation small business owner. So my grandfather, who is, we are very close, he owned businesses. He actually grew up in the Great Depression in Mississippi. His parents were farmers, and they were, really struggling back then. He was able to, take from that and build some small businesses. Actually, at one point, he was his company was Cashmere Manufacturing, and they were the largest employer in Snohomish County. They manufactured airplane parts for Boeing. So that was really cool. And my parents, they started their small business when I was born. So they wanted that work-life balance. They did not want to work 9 to 5, so they wanted to raise their family while also running their small business. My dad was a wildlife and nature photographer. And so as a family, when I was a child, we would go around, especially in the summertime, and my parents would sell my dad's photographs at these arts festivals. And so from a really young age, I had this experience of customer service and sales, and also taking in money, which was my favorite part. And one thing I noticed, though, with my parents, the downside to their business was that every time they were successful in selling their products, they then had to recreate them. And so that kind of stuck with me as I was kind of growing up, thinking, okay, of course I want to now own my own small business, but how can I somehow do that without having to work harder every time I made a sale? So that was really interesting to me. I got my first job when I was 15 years old. I was a server at Alfie's Pizza. And really, really loved kind of that experience. I was one of my only friends that actually had money. So I enjoyed kind of my quote unquote leadership position of actually being the friend that had money and, that was able to kind of, do things with that money. So early on, I kind of realized, hey, I have some power here, of like how I can produce an income and enjoy that. And then same thing. So throughout high school, I typically had 2 or 3 jobs. I worked for my parents, and then also, worked at restaurants or server, things like that. I went to half senior year of high school. I did half high school, half community college. At the time, I was studying international business and trade. And then I was thinking that maybe I would pursue a law degree. And so I then, after high school, I worked as a manager at an espresso stand, and then also would go to school in the afternoons. And then oftentimes in the nights, I would work as a server at restaurants.
So you were an overachiever.
Well, yeah, I think freedom has always been incredibly important to me. And I, found that, again, at the time, there was kind of 2 things that were important. One is, having the freedom to, use the money however I wanted and, and have more options and things like that. And then also I was really into learning. So I learned a lot. I think everyone, especially young people, everyone should do some kind of customer service, especially in the food industry. And I know that many people shy away from that or wouldn't say that that's top of their list as far as a job. But gosh, you learn so much in customer service. Especially working from tips. I remember at one point, I was probably making $150 to $300 a day in just cash tips. And in your 20s, that was good money at the time.
Yeah, you were rolling.
So anyways, I had a goal, and it was to buy my first house at age 21. And I think part of that was because my grandfather, who I think highly of, he's been a mentor for me forever. He was in commercial real estate. And so even though, unfortunately, his business filed for bankruptcy in the, I think it was the late 70s, early 80s, and he lost everything, he was actually able to do very well in commercial real estate. And so for me, I thought, okay, I'm going to be my grandfather. I'm going to get into real estate. And so first and foremost, I wanted to start by buying my own house.
So is that how you learned about real estate? Is because your grandfather owned those commercial properties? You know what I mean? Is that how you clued into even what real estate was?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to be like him. So, and the interesting thing is my parents wanted nothing to do with real estate. So sometimes it seems to skip a generation. I've noticed. So that was kind of my decision. And long story short, I decided, okay, this was going to be my goal. I was working all these jobs, saving all these tips so that I could buy my first house. And so my boyfriend and I, at the time, we purchased a home in 2007, which was not the best time to purchase a home. However, that led me to where I am today. So I realized a couple of things through that process is one, the real estate agent made really, really good money for his participation in that deal. I think $7,500 or so. And then I really enjoyed it. Was a 1901 single family house, the cheapest house that we could find in practically the whole county, and it was a complete gut remodel.
Do you still own it?
No, nope. So that one sold. So I actually ended up selling that to, he ended up refinancing me, that ex-boyfriend of mine. And so, but one of the reasons why I bought it was, I realized that it was a development piece. So it had a higher, zoning. I didn't quite understand that at the time, but it was a large lot in a really great area. But the house was just, it was pretty much like dumpster bait. So immediately after closing, I decided that I was going to figure out how to learn the real estate business by gaining employment with a company, with either a building company, general contractors, or real estate company. And so I started interviewing with builders and things like that, and I got hired on with a local builder, and immediately kind of learned the building and development. I gained skills such as project management, estimating, working with the banks on construction loans, figuring out part of the company. They built single family homes, spec homes for sale, and then they also built small multifamily, so duplexes and triplexes and fourplexes. And
curious,
so
out of that education from working for that builder, right? What do you think was the top thing that you learned? Was it, how to build from ground up physically, like what the project management process is? Or is it the financing, how the financing of those now in hindsight, you know what I mean? What was the most important lesson from that experience and that job that you think gave you an advantage moving forward?
Yeah, I think it was actually the fact that they were building a small multifamily. So it was, a lot of builders don't get into multifamily, right? They do one thing, they do spec home building. And so what was unique to this company is that they were doing spec home building, but then they were also taking business profits out of the spec home building and building. And the owners were calling that, this is our retirement.
So they were building to keep it.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. So they were building to hold. And I thought that was brilliant. I'm like, this is so smart. At the time, of course, 2007, spec home building was fantastic. That was the business to be in, right? Things were going really, really well. And yet they were still, planning this, retirement plan, right? So any of us in real estate, we don't get a pension. we don't get a retirement plan. We have to build our own. And so having that experience, if I had gone maybe to work with another builder that was just focused on spec home building, my trajectory might have been completely different. But that really stuck with me. So I realized, okay, that's really smart. Yes, you earn an income, and then you take a portion of that income and set it aside and invest, and then start building a rental portfolio so that, us as real estate professionals, we have a retirement plan, we have an exit strategy. So I would say that was actually the most important. Of course, everything else, great, was phenomenal. I knew exactly how to build a house, all the steps, project management, the financing side, the banking side, the, after repair value calculation, all of that.
Awesome stuff, right? So then what? So you're working for them. Then what happens?
Yep. So then I kept taking on additional responsibilities. So I am a big fan of side hustles. I think that especially now, everyone needs a side hustle. And so I was, working full time. And then I also was doing tenant placement after work. So I would get, I think it was a full month's rent of finding tenants, so I was doing it for the owners and then also other people. And then I got my real estate license in 2009. It was May of 2009. And my sole purpose for getting the real estate license was that I could represent myself, be my own buyer's agent and use the commission for down payments. And then also, of course, get into properties and, things like that. Right. So that was my only purpose. And interestingly, I had some friends and family when they heard I got my real estate license, they said, well, hey, can you help me buy a house? And so I was working full time, doing tenant placement on the side and then selling houses after that, right? So somehow in between. And so, so my first, from May to the end of the year, I sold 6 houses. And I said, there's something to this.
I just, honestly, I don't understand when people are wanting to be doing real estate full time and they don't get a license. I don't know, maybe it's a debate. I don't want to get on my soapbox about it, but I just think there's so many opportunities, to get paid. If you're full time trying to be an investor, why wouldn't you want to have your license just for the reason of being able to put your commission towards a down payment,
Absolutely. There are some limitations related to wholesaling and kind of some off-market. You kind of have to be a little bit careful on that.
Well, that is my expertise. If anybody wants the answers on that, you reach out to me. I call wholesalers that's just the name for people that don't have a license.
Absolutely.
All us brokers, we can still do all our business off market. We do lots of off market business as agents. So, you guys call me if you have questions on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. So you got your license, you're cruising through, you're making kick ass for 6 months.
Yep. And then I ended up quitting. So at the time we purchased in December of 2009, a house hack duplex. And so my husband was not a fan of living in this house hack duplex, but I knew that things were going to get worse before they would get better. And I had convinced him to buy a single family house that we lived in. He used the USDA zero down loan. So we lived there for a year and then moved out and moved into this house hack duplex. Of course, we rented his place out. And so we moved into this house hack duplex. I was able to, FHA at the time was 3% down, right? So we were able to get it zero down by applying the commission. And I knew that, I knew that things were going to get a little bit worse. So we kind of hung out there for a while, had the tenant on the other side pretty much paying our entire mortgage, which was fantastic. And then I just decided, hey, I'm really going to give this real estate agent thing a try. At the time, I, didn't have a ton of experience as an agent, but I knew a lot and I had a lot of skills related to working with investors. And I also knew how to build houses. So I called some friends and family and we raised some capital and did a kind of a partnership deal, finishing out half-built houses. So I realized as an agent, okay, you need listings. And I didn't have listings. So instead I figured, well, we'll just build houses and this will.
Are you saying that you basically sought out where people were having trouble and wanted to sell before they were finished with their project and you came in and finished it and took over with your investment group?
Absolutely. Yeah, actually, the bank had taken back construction funds from multiple builders at the time. So we first project she had foundations in the ground, and then the bank took the project back, and so I went in and negotiated a short sale to kind of help that builder out, and then also get the project at a discount so that we can kind of see the project through. So yeah, my first stuff.
And did they let you? Do they? You can't be an agent and the buyer on a short sale, right? Or will you just kind of? What's the rule on that?
Yeah, so that one I wasn't actually the buyer, so I facilitated the entire transaction as the agent, and then put it. Then there was an LLC with the investors on the deal.
Awesome.
Yep. So I kind of project manage that really just for real estate commissions. And at that time it wasn't proven, right? And so I said, well, look, I have the skill set, I'll go ahead and do this. And then after that, we did a little bit of a partnership on future ones. Nice. But yeah, my first 5 listings were single family houses that, we built. So that was fun.
Yeah. Just moving down the path here. This is good. It's amazing to me how many of the, some of the most talented people that we speak with that are, just crushing it and have for a long time, how young they started. I mean, we're talking like people like in, middle school start paying attention to, real estate and get that into their brain and then move, one step at a time towards where they are today. So that seems to be a common denominator with the most successful people that we have on our podcast is how early they got started, by somehow being influenced by something that, showed them the way with real estate. So you included. So awesome. All right. So you're cooking along here. What year are we at?
So at this point, this would be 2010.
What happened?
Yep. So this. Yeah. So then, the market shifts and it's a tough market. Right. I mean, so not a lot of people are selling, or what is available is short sales. And then, we had that home buyer tax credit thing that kind of propped things up a little bit. And then once that went away, it was a little bit, quiet and slow. So then I met, through a lender of mine, I met a guy who was buying at the foreclosure auction. And I was like, wait, what's this foreclosure auction thing? And I had, at the time, I had no idea how properties become bank owned. I just thought the bank at one point says, okay, we're going to take these back. But then my eyes were opened to this, how properties actually get foreclosed on. And so he kind of taught me everything related to bidding and buying at the foreclosure auction. And so I started representing, myself as a flipper at the time, buying properties at the foreclosure auction, and then also representing investors. At the time, in like March of 2010, my husband and I had sat down and we agreed that we were going to really, really kind of dig our heels in for the next 5 years and work really, really hard to build our own rental portfolio. We kind of realized that, the real estate was on sale. There was a steep discount out there. And while the media and the general public, while everyone was saying, oh, real estate's a bad investment, prices are going down, don't buy. We had the opposite mentality. We were like, let's take all of our money and put it into real estate because everything is incredibly cheap. It'll turn around. The interest rates were, I don't remember exactly what they were in 2010, but I remember in 2011, we were able to get 2.65% on our primary residence. And then 3.65 on a non-owner occupied kind of duplex burr that we had done.
Sound familiar, right? Yeah. So yep. when you were doing that, when you were buying at the auctions, so you were making your money maybe by selling, doing some agent stuff, continuing to grow your cash flow that way. What did it look like for you when you went to the auctions? How were you taking those down? What was your plan? Were you flipping at that time, or did you know you were going to burr essentially, and flip to hold at that time? Was that your plan, or?
Yeah, we were doing everything. So we were looking for vacant land to build spec homes on, to sell those. We were looking for projects that would be good flip projects. We were looking for good burr projects as well. So we were really just looking at everything. And frankly, we were just doing everything. So sometimes we would be representing clients. And so I would earn a commission from the successful purchase for a client at the foreclosure auction. And then sometimes, if nobody else wanted to buy that deal, then we would, buy it for either a flip or a burr.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. All right. So you in that time, did you end up keeping a handful of properties at that time, or?
Yep.
Let's trucking down the road. Yeah.
Yep. So we just kept buying, and we kept, so I think I learned about burr, I want to say it was like late 2010, so how the foreclosure auction worked is, we would get the list on sometimes Tuesday, Wednesday night, right, for the Friday auction. And then we'd spend all day Thursday driving properties and trying to gather as much information as we could. We'd show up on Friday. I had two really great guys that I worked with for hard money lending. They would come to the auction, oftentimes with $5 million in their pocket in the form of cashier's checks. And we were bidding on properties, right? We were standing out in the cold. I mean, to this day, it kind of sounds a little crazy to even just, share all this, but yeah, we were standing out there and bidding on properties and, things like that. So then I learned, so at one point, I think my hard money lender, Fred, had said, yeah, for some of these that you're flipping, you could just do like a rate, like I'll loan you the money. You can do a rate and term refinance and just keep it. And I'm like, what? And my mind was just blown. I'm like, wait a second, hold the phone. I'm like, yeah, of course, because at that point we had been, again, just using our money and kind of putting down payment. And I'm like, this is amazing. Right. So we started doing that. Our focus was, we were hoping to do more like multifamily with it as well, just for cash flow reasons. And then I was like, okay, everyone needs to know this stuff. There's I think at that time, Bigger Pockets wasn't even really around. I don't remember what year they came. And so I started hosting these little like Thursday night sessions with investors to show them what was coming up for auction on Friday, and then also kind of sharing all this information with other people, because I really wanted, for me, of course, my husband and I could only do so much. And so we loved helping other people put their portfolios together and also take advantage of, what was happening in the real estate market.
Do you foresee that coming forward potentially here again, where you almost, like, I don't want to say Vestas, but, having this auction group stuff again? Are you thinking that this is a possibility going forward here?
It's hard to say. I think that, for our business is very different now. We actually primarily do not do, business in the state of Washington, right. Or I should say in Western Washington anymore, mostly because, we promote buying for cash flow, right? And it's a little bit tough to get the returns that, I would want and many of our investors would want in Western Washington. Now that might change. So of course, obviously anyone who has the ability to find good deals in their own backyard, that's the best place to start and best place to look. But if that's not possible, then other markets are a fantastic option as well.
Absolutely. We're going to go deep dive on that. Let's wrap up the history. So then you are now holding these group meetings regarding auction properties, and how does that morph into Agents Invest?
Yeah. So we did really, really well in the downturn, to be honest. And then I struggled a little bit as an agent when the market shifted, and it shifted back to more of a normal market. And I found myself, just a little down in a way, right? I loved helping people build portfolios, but, we started getting a lot of attention, a lot of calls from people that just wanted help selling their regular houses and buying, mover up houses. And, frankly, my skill set, my knowledge is on the numbers side, like the analytical side, not the, emotional side or the staging side or, looking into school districts or where do people want to live. So, so we had done really, really well. And I had brought on other agents that could kind of, be a different personality for people. And then a couple of friends were just like, well, why aren't you investing out of state? And it hadn't really occurred to me. I shouldn't say it hadn't occurred to me. We had been so successful acquiring properties here locally that, I was a little bit fearful, like, how could we duplicate what we do here out of state? We would be 100% reliant on others. I don't know that that's for us. And then 2016 rolled around, and we hadn't really bought any properties, my husband and I. And so I said, okay, I think it's finally time to go out of state. But then I realized, well, shoot, where do you start? What city do you start with? How do you know what makes a good market? How do you put a team together? How do you find people? How do you know if this is a good deal or not for the area? Because everything is, or I shouldn't say everything, but a lot of properties are cheaper, much, much cheaper outside of Western Washington. So it's kind of
let's go deep dive on that. So, you are basically, you have turned into, at least in our state here in our area, King, Pierce, Snohomish County, I swear you have turned into the go-to person for out-of-state investing. And I don't know if you're working with people in other states or if you're working primarily with investors here in Washington, but, you have become the authority on that, in my opinion, and I pay attention to who's doing what on that niche. And so what is your process? How did you start your out-of-state team with your agent partners and your ground partners? What did that look like when you developed it? And what does it look like today?
Yep.
How did you pick where to go? Why do you pick where to go? And how do you find your partners?
Yeah. So in that first experience, again, I'm as an investor, I'm like, okay, where do I start? And so I said, okay, well, I only want to invest in cities that are growing in population. Okay, so that's easy, right? So narrow that down. Well, I only want to invest in cities that did well in this last recession, right? So, okay, great. And so I kind of wrote down a series of criteria, and then I was able to narrow it down to a couple of cities. And then I decided, okay, well, now, I can't do anything unless I find a good team, right? So then I started calling on teams and kind of interviewing people, and finally put a good team together in Indianapolis, and was able to find.
What does that mean? You just researched who was doing what agents were, how did you research how to reach out to that initial team?
Yep. So I was looking online for investor agents or investment savvy agents. And there's not really anything, there's not like a tab or a click button to sort all those agents, right? Because it just doesn't exist out there. And so I started calling property management companies, and I started calling real estate offices. And I just said, okay, hey, who's your person that works with investors?
Yeah.
And sometimes I would get, they'd say, okay, here's a couple people. And I would call them, and, I'd ask them a series of questions, and I'd say, all right, so tell me about the best deal that you've seen this week. And a lot of them would say, oh, well, there was a single family home in this neighborhood that normally sells for $200, and this one was going for $180.
What year was this that you started doing that?
This is 2016.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, well, that agent doesn't know what they're talking about. And so finally I found a couple of good agents, was able to buy a property. And then I told my investor friends about that. And they're like, hey, I want to work with that team too. Can you help me connect with them? And of course, Julie, as you guys know, right, there's, referrals that agents can, it's very common for an agent to refer a client to another agent and then share in the commission for that referral, right? And so I had enough people saying, oh, I want to work with that team. I'm like, I'm onto something here. Yeah. And so then I went and I said, okay, well, maybe we don't necessarily need to start in Indianapolis. For some people, it's great because it's a very affordable market. But then I said, well, shoot, I have people in Spokane, and dang it, historically Spokane had at the time, 1% growth, nothing was really happening. It sure definitely wasn't crashing, but not much was really happening. So it was a little bit of a risk. But when I went into the market demographics, I'm like, dang it, Spokane has everything to really take off. And so again, I was sitting on this huge database of investor clients, and I said, hey guys, will you trust me to consider Spokane? Of course, I can't help you in Spokane because it's a totally different MLS. And frankly, I don't know the market as well. But I have a couple of agents for you to talk to. And it went really well. And the investors were loving it. They were like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. And now I can actually find good cash flowing deals. And then the agents were like, I was getting these messages that are like, I have achieved my goals in half the time this year based on working with your referrals.
Awesome.
So I was like, okay, I think that this is time for me to do a complete business pivot and serve out-of-state investors and, help my agent partners because, of course I've been an agent for all this time. And so I love helping agents build their businesses, and I love helping investors build their portfolios. Right. So
How
it's
does that work
fantastic.
for you on your side of things in regards to the flow? And I imagine you're not personally reviewing every deal that comes across the table, or are you? I mean, maybe you
Actually,
are because you might be buying it. You might want to buy it, or what's your flow in regards to how does that all work? So you've reached out, you've established your agent partners in these communities, and then I think people are just curious, I think, to know, what the process is, because you are really delivering. You are really delivering. And it is impressive. But what does the process look like? So you've established your teams, or you made those relationships. Do you fly out there initially and meet them, or is it all online, Zoom or something like that? How do you officially seal the deal with certain agents, or you just ask them a series of questions, and if they pass the test, then you give them a chance?
Yep. Yeah. So we definitely put them through kind of a series of tests. Obviously, so we analyze their deals for a while until we can really prove that they know what they're doing. And then also, at one time, I was working personally with all of these agents. And then it grew so fast that I'm like, okay, well, gosh, I can't buy in every single market in order to test these agents out. We've got to somehow, we've got to scale this as well, while also not having me be the bottleneck. So I brought on a former investor client of mine who had actually gotten laid off. The company that she had worked for closed down. And so I said, okay, Dina, we're gonna do this. And so sometimes she would work with the agent on a deal, or I would, and we would kind of vet them that way. But most of our people now, they go through a series of tests. We make sure that their deals are legit. We check their estimated rents with property managers. We talk to other clients that they've worked with. So we kind of put them through this test and make sure, because there's nothing worse than giving a bad referral, right? I would rather have no referral than give a bad connection.
I remember one time with Seattle Investors Club, we used to let wholesalers submit their wholesale deals into a platform that we had. And then if you were a member of Seattle Investors Club, we would go ahead and blast that out to our entire list, which was cool because, again, I didn't want to be the bottleneck either, right? But I felt obligated. I got to look at all these deals. Maybe it's a deal that myself or one of my investors wants to pick up. But then it started to pick up with the volume. And I remember what happened one time is that somebody that absolutely went through the vetting, right? Let's just say very experienced investor, and sent a deal through, and somebody bought it on the other end. And it was a bad deal. And, they bought it because it came through our channel with our stamp on it. Right. But I didn't personally go into detail vetting it that hard, because the person it came from was super experienced and had a good name out there in the, trustworthy person. And I just went, Jesus, and I still to this day feel guilty about that. And I immediately pulled the plug on it, because I just didn't want, I didn't have the setup at that time like you did. You got to work through once it can ramp up, right? It can ramp up like that. And so I'm just curious, on how that works for you today, on vetting the deals.
Yep. So we used to actually make an individual connection between an investor and an agent. And then our agent, we got so big that our agents were like, I can't take any more of these investors. I'm doing 10, 20 calls a day with people, and I'm having to explain to them about our market and explain myself and our business. And they're just like, I can't, it's too much. And we were like, well, shoot. Okay. How do we continue? But how do we streamline this? And so then we shifted to just as you had said, right? So we said, okay, agents, you send us the deals and we will look at them and then put them on our deal list. And then the investors can, look at the deal list. Because sometimes, when the investors were calling and talking to the agents, they wouldn't be ready to buy for 6 months.
Right. It was wasting. You almost need to vet the buyer.
Yes.
As well, right.
Yep. So we put some provisions in there as well. So now we kind of have investors fill out a questionnaire, and then everyone gets added to the deal list. And then, of course, when somebody is ready to buy and qualified to buy, they can get connected based on a deal. We do currently I do personally quickly analyze every deal. I don't go further than, just a quick analysis. Maybe.
Let's talk about that one, since we're talking about it. What does that look like for you? What are those 3 things or whatever that you look at, or 5 things to give your quick, okay, we're going to keep this one on the list. We'll keep moving forward. What does that look like today for you?
Yeah, so I just run it all through my buy and hold deal analysis calculator. So we only focus on buy and hold. We do not. Some of our agents have sent us flips, and we're like, nope, we're not going there. We're only sending buy and hold. So I look for like small, for like 1 to 4 residential properties. I look for a pro forma on at least 8% cash on cash or higher. Sometimes we can go a little bit lower if it's like a really, really hot market, because that's the other downside, is every market's a little bit different, right? So sometimes we get deals in Austin, Texas, right? And it's almost like Seattle. You don't get cash flow, right? But some of our investors like the stability of Austin, and it is less expensive than Seattle, so it's a little bit tough. But yeah, we kind of look on a, And
what do you see them agreeing to on like cash on cash returns in markets where the stable markets where they're willing to accept less? What does willing to accept less mean? Is that like 6 or?
Yeah, so 6, I would say 6 is careful, but I also keep in mind, I run everything at a 10% vacancy, 10% for CapEx and maintenance and reserve. So I am more on the conservative side. So my 6 might be another investor's 8, right? So I tend to be a little bit more on the conservative side.
And what you said is that your 10%, you're doing that because you're essentially picking up vacancy, capital expenditures, and just in that vacancy number. Is that right? Kind of just
Absolutely.
a catch-all discount. So what does it say? I'm a detail person. So get used to it. So what do you think's in that 10% number?
Yep. So 10% for economic and physical vacancy, an additional 10% for CapEx and maintenance and reserves. And then, of course, 10% for property management. And then, of course, we include property taxes, insurance, any landlord paid utilities, all of that.
Right. There you go.
Contract services.
Right there is a little nugget for people, because they need to understand, how to use the numbers, right? So you're knocking off 10% for vacancy, 10% for CapEx, 10% for property management, and then you're reducing that further by the fixed costs, right?
Absolutely.
And that is your number on how you're getting to your bottom line value there, right?
Absolutely.
Your cash flow number.
Yep.
There you go, guys. Right there. Good stuff. Okay. That and saying that out loud makes it seem like, how the heck can you find any good deals with that, right? So give us some hope on the fact that you find deals all the time like that.
Oh, all the time. Oh, our inbox is full. So now we have created almost a little bit more of a bottleneck on the deal flow side, because I have deals that sit in my inbox that I haven't quite gotten to it yet to get out to our investors. And sometimes too, we do have to go back to the agents and say, because we ask our agents, I want to go back to your question about, or kind of the comment about, the investor that had bought a deal just because it was from somebody that was reputable.
Yes.
And, but I do want to say, so we require all of our agents to provide the information that an investor would need to analyze their own deals. So we have had investors ask us to share our analysis. And I tend not to because I want investors to make their own decision. I want investors to get in the habit of deal analysis and also know their criteria. It's surprising to me how many people are looking to invest, but they don't have criteria in mind, or they don't have any kind of standards of where they'll invest their money. And so that's where this our Addicted to ROI came about, is I realized, hey, we're doing a lot of good. We're helping people truly change their financial, their financial lives. We have some investors that went from, 2 units now to 28 to 30. We have my friend Cody, who went from 26 units in mid 2018 and then started working with our network, and is now he's at 85. Right. So we're really helping out, but unfortunately it was mostly helping out the experienced investors.
Let me ask you a question. I got and maybe you have this or not, but do you have like a questionnaire almost that you can give investors to force them to ask themselves a series of questions, you know?
We do actually have a survey that says like what type of investment strategy would be best for me, because everyone's different, right? So age is going to be different, income and all those different things. And then risk tolerance, right? A lot of people don't factor in their risk tolerance. We actually have a survey. I'd be happy to share it with you. It asks them a series of questions related to how much capital they have to invest, what their goal is, what their time frame is, what their risk tolerance is, what their experience level is. And then at the end, it kind of says, well, based on your answers, you should consider single family houses, or, hey, you're experienced and have a high risk tolerance. Maybe you should do value add multifamily.
Exactly.
We have that. Yeah.
We would love to have that from you.
Great.
That would be perfect. Maybe even just post it on the Seattle Investors Club if you want it on the Seattle Investors Club. And if you guys, or is there a way to somehow link it to the podcast in any way? Is there a link anywhere,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a link.
Excellent. We'll do that. Sounds great. Hey guys, it's Julie here with a quick break from the show to discuss an opportunity some of you may have interest in, which is to work more closely with me. On almost a daily basis, I get calls from investors and brokers, both new and experienced, asking me for guidance or advice. I love helping you guys out, and it keeps me on my toes too. So with that said, I wanted to let you know that I have a private broker coaching community called the VIP Education Community. And the best part is that it's 100% free. That's right, it's free to join. So whether you're a traditional broker or a broker investor, my VIP education community offers personalized one-on-one coaching from not just me, but also from my experienced broker friends with expertise in all disciplines of real estate and real estate investing. We'll teach and share our modern marketing strategies, our tech and lead generation resources, plus teach you how to identify or offer up opportunities for yourself or for your clients using techniques such as seller financing, lease options, land entitlement deals, BRRRR investing, flipping, multifamily or commercial coaching, whatever you like. We've got it all covered for you. The future of real estate is changing fast, and to stay in the game, it's time to learn about all the options you can offer your buyer and seller clients, as well as, if you want, learn how to use those skills to grow your own real estate portfolio. If you'd like more details about joining my VIP education community, reach out to me at julie@seattleinvestorsclub.com or text me at 206-910-2985, or just send me a Facebook message. My new favorite phrase is community equals confidence. So let's navigate the future of real estate together. Now, back to the show. For multifamily, along the same lines, those are 1 to 4 units. How would you do the exact same thing with your underwriting criteria for, 5 to 10 units or 20 units, just bigger properties?
Yep. I think it's going to depend on the property, right? And it's also going to depend on the, the size as well. Obviously, when you go over like 30 to 50 units is kind of this weird spot. But above that, then obviously, you're requiring leasing office and contract services and, maintenance people and things like that.
That 50-ish, 30-ish, those are actually tough to manage for efficiency,
yes.
Right? Yeah,
absolutely.
Because it costs, it's just very tough on that for cost efficiencies on that size. But that doesn't mean you guys shouldn't buy them. Jennifer's here to help you do that. So
absolutely. Yeah. So it's a similar process, on the bigger multifamily stuff. And it also kind of depends on the buyer. So some investor buyers might say, well, I don't want to do a full remodel on every unit. I'm going to, just increase the rents or implement RUBS and call it a day. And other investors might say, well, no, I want to maximize the NOI and increase the value on this property. I am wanting to actually not renew leases, have tenants move out and fully remodel the unit. So that's a little bit different because I don't want to anticipate what every investor might do on a deal, right? So I tend to, again, our goal is to give the information to the investor and then empower the investors to make their own decisions and also, kind of educate along the way. So we do, we have an online course. We also do, monthly meetups that you had mentioned. We do master classes.
We're gonna announce some of those things that people can connect with you here. So let me ask you one more question. So as far as it goes these days, you are still vetting the deals, I guess I'll say, with your brief. Tell me again your brief. You're just plugging it into your deal analyzer, which we went over the numbers on, and if it pops out with a certain cash on cash, then that passes the sniff test, or
yep.
Or do you look at all the status of the improvements at all? Do you add any numbers in there for that in your calculation, or you just straight up go, if it's, updated to, how do you deal with the status of the improvements, whether it's beat up or not, when you're doing your calculator to give it the pass through?
Yeah. So we ask our agents to also assign a renovation budget if renovations are needed. Right. So a lot of times, with some of the value add stuff, renovations are needed. Right. So sometimes I'll run the deal a couple of ways. Sometimes I'll run it as is. And then other times I will run it with a renovation and then improved rents. And again, more or less, it's a quick pass to determine if it makes sense to send out to our investors. So do you run a stabilized refinance model on it or anything like that? We do on Burr properties. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Excellent.
Multifamily is a little bit harder because every lender is going to be different, right? So some might want stabilized T12, somebody might want a stabilized T3 or T6. So it's going to depend. It's really going to depend.
Well, let's jump into what's going on today, because we're going long here already. We could talk to you forever. So I'm going to, Jennifer, if you're part of her community, you might have received an email from her in the last week or so with some guidance, with all her years and years of experience and dealing with these investment properties of her own, as well as helping other investors on a daily basis. She sent us out all a very, very helpful kind of guideline, I guess I'll say, of things to start thinking about if things are going to be turning in this market. And so I want to go break that down line item by line item real quick and just touch upon it, which is the first thing you said was maybe fill vacancies as soon as possible, even if you need to reduce rents, right? Do you want to set up this part of the discussion in any way to let people know that you're still investing and, what you're anticipating yourself? How are you feeling right now about the state of our economy, what's going on, and what your plans are? Let's cover that for a minute first, and then give some guidance on what you yourself will be doing as well.
Yep. Well, I remain highly optimistic in the long term. In the short term, I think that we are going to experience some challenges, right? I think that everyone's on the same page with that we are going to be entering a completely new economy. This new economy, we're seeing the education system be completely disrupted at this point. I think that there's going to be a lot of good that comes from that. I think that, again, I don't want to get into too long of predictions on all these different things, but I think the education system is going to be disrupted. It's likely that we're going to enter into some negative interest rate territory, which is, potentially very good for real estate investors. I think that there's going to be a lot more, efficiencies. There's going to potentially be more U.S. made manufactured products based on this. So of course I am absolutely continuing to buy. I've been blown up in the last week with people saying, should I be backing out of deals? Should I be putting a pause on things? And quite frankly, my husband and I had this discussion the other night. We decided that yes, of course, we're going to continue to purchase multifamily real estate. Remembering, of course, that these are real physical assets that produce an income, right? So in the short term, yeah, things are going to be tough. I had reached out to all of my tenants yesterday just to, for one, kind of check in with people, make sure that everyone was feeling well and that their families were okay. And then also kind of being proactive and getting ahead of things. So certainly we are going to be continuing to invest in the short term with the expectation that in the long term that it's going to pay off.
And Jennifer, how from this week to 2-3 months ago, or before this was in our face as, yes, this is going to happen, what have you personally changed in regards to your underwriting due diligence going forward, right?
Yep. Well, actually, so
we were talking about your deal analyzer with the 10%, 10%, 10%. Tell us, what are you doing differently today?
So actually my deal criteria has not changed since 2009. So that's now the only thing I will say in the short term, we are not taking on high vacancy projects that require a large renovation. We are, more looking at stabilized properties where, we can increase rents maybe, after all this gets sorted out. So that's so the criteria is the same. However, we're just, kind of putting a little bit of a short-term pause, at least until we kind of get an idea of how long this might last, on anything that would require a big renovation, or is not a stabilized property.
And guys, I have some really good news for you. Today, before we got started, when we were talking with Jennifer, we've decided she's going to come check in with us about every 2 months. We're going to check in with Jennifer as we all go through this together, and hear from her on what her and her team and across the country, everywhere she's investing, what she's experiencing, and we're going to share that with you guys. Hopefully that sounds good. I know I'm excited. It gives me comfort. So I hope it brings you comfort also, because, we all need to stick together on this. So, okay. So you're still going for it. How, have you had any reaction from the agents yet? Maybe it's too soon, in your markets. Are they giving you any feedback like, that they're not, able to find people that are wanting to sell? Or are they like, what's the prognosis there? Tightening or loosening?
Yeah. So, we obviously are based in Seattle, Washington, the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak. So things are, I think, a little bit different here than they are maybe in some of the other markets in the Midwest. So yeah, I've been communicating with all of our agents. I would say that, we're still seeing deals being done. So actually, I think it was like 3 or 4 of our investors just got under contract on multifamily properties in the last week. So things are going well there. But yeah, I mean, there have been some agents that have called and said, well, an investor client was thinking about getting out of a deal, but they kind of wanted to talk to us. And so there has been some, I think, concern or caution on the investor side, which of course is expected during these times. But yeah, we haven't seen a flood of properties, of course, hit the market. I'm not sure that we will see that. I think even when I was bidding at the foreclosure auction in the worst of the worst in 2010, we were not seeing many multifamily properties, right? And I think that this is very different, of course, than 2008. But yeah, not a whole lot of difference out of state yet. I think
rent? So what are you going to do with with the job loss and unemployment that's expected? We were talking about how are you going to adjust your rents for that? Are you putting your, forecasting future rents, even if it's occupied when you're buying it, right? And the leases come up. Are you modeling out like a, 10%, 20% reduction in rent that's possible as like a stress test or something like that?
I think that it's going to depend on the property, right? I think A class is probably going to be hit the hardest because those tend to be the higher luxury, rentals that are renting for the highest. Most everything that we own and what we send out is actually more on the affordable side, right? So we're talking rents in the, let's say a 2-bed, 1-bath is going to be anywhere from like $700 to $1,200 a month in rent, maybe $1,300 a month in rent. So that's incredibly affordable. In that email that I sent out, at one point, 25% of our tenants were on unemployment, and yet they were all able to pay. So I think that, of course, landlords need to brace and kind of, prepare for some potential, tenants that are not paying. I think April is potentially going to be the hardest because I'm not sure when unemployment benefits are going to kick in. I do suggest that any landlord look at the unemployment benefit rates in the area that they own rentals so they can kind of get an idea of how much their tenants will earn on unemployment, because I think that that's going to be that variable that we should be looking at.
What about if somebody comes and applies to be a tenant at one of your properties and they're on unemployment? Does that ever happen in the past?
Yes. Oh yeah. Yep. And disability and things like that. So of course, again, it's more or less if that's your only option, like like I've been telling our investors, if you have any vacancies right now, like I had an investor call me and they had kind of a funky situation with the tenant. And I said, take them. Absolutely, take them. Put them on a 6-month lease because, if things get worse or we go into further kind of quarantine or lockdown efforts, then you are going to want a tenant in your unit that's paying. So
I was wondering about that. If people are freaking out and accepting more lenient rents or situations, my initial feeling on the whole 6 months is if I was a tenant, I would feel not secure with somebody only giving me a 6-month lease, that I was in jeopardy at this time, right? With the unknown. Yeah. What do you think about that? I guess it'd be, if there was some sort of way to like have some sort of like local index or something like that, like your rent is set and this is a year lease and your rent is set for 6 months. And somehow having your rent increase after 6 months tied to like the unemployment rate index or something easy that everybody can understand, with a cap. So, if the unemployment rate is, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, making this shit up, right?
I mean, that's a phenomenal idea. And I think to your point, we're all just kind of just trying to figure out, navigate this thing. Like, okay, how do we be proactive as opposed to reactive? I think that's, everyone needs to be proactive right now, no matter where you're at.
Yeah, you guys, if you guys have any ideas on that, on how to, not lock yourself into some low rent, but right into your lease, any creative way, that ties, that's how they do it in commercial, right? Rent increases are tied to, CPI index or something like that sometimes on certain leases in retail, sometimes rents are tied to, the gross income or the incomes of the business that is in that space, right? And they have like a reconciliation every quarter or something like that, or every month, in fact, on how much, that retail space has collected in income. And that helps determine in some calculation what the rent is. So maybe there's a way to do that. And maybe that's a discussion or ideas that we can throw it out there. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so early into this that we're all kind of trying to figure it out. I know I was talking to another landlord friend of mine who has 85 units in Seattle, and he went around offering, he provided a letter to all of his tenants yesterday offering 30% off April's rent if they paid on time and they proved their hardship. They proved that, they had proof that they had been unemployed.
The other thing maybe we talk about here, Jennifer, is that when we are collecting, depending on maybe not the affordable properties, I don't know if you're able to, if you need to lower the monthly payment that somebody is paying you because they can't afford it, protecting your actual rent versus your other income, like breaking apart things in your leases between base rent, parking rent, storage rent, whatever else. And when you start dropping it off, don't touch your base rent, touch your other income categories first, because lenders have sometimes restrictions or limitations on, I know at least in multifamily, on maybe what they'll count for other income. They'll only calculate that cap it at 3% for the underwriting for loan purposes or something like that. So do you think it makes sense, if you're a multifamily owner especially, to make sure, even like if you're doing utility bill backs, stop the utility bill backs before you touch the rent, protect your base rents first?
Absolutely. I think that's a phenomenal idea, because there's going to be an opportunity where I think we will see historically low interest rates. And we want to be able to take advantage of that, right? As multifamily investors. So I think that that's a phenomenal idea, Julie. Yeah, absolutely.
Right on. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is your number 2 point was renew month-to-month leases to a 12-month lease as soon as possible, right? I mean, anybody who's out there on a month-to-month lease. And, I want to add on top of that and say, why not recast? If you can recast, essentially, I'm using that word, your leases right now, even if let's say you're on a 12-month lease and you're only 4 months in, why not go to your tenants and say, hey guys, I know we're going through some troubles right now. why don't we, to give you security, so you know you have a place and that we're not going to bump your rent, why don't we recast for another 12 months or, right now?
Yep.
Even if you're in the middle of a lease term.
Yep. Absolutely.
Something like that. With all the talk about not being able to evict anybody on certain properties, what's your take on that?
Oh, yeah, okay. So I would say most landlords would not be evicting at this point anyway. I personally don't like that. I think that announcement is a little premature. I think it potentially sends the wrong message to tenants as well. So I am not in agreement with that. But of course, as a landlord myself, I would not be pursuing evictions at this time anyway.
I have a rental unit myself. Anybody that's looking for a nice oversized condo in downtown Ballard, I have one available for you right now. Hit me up at julie@seattleinvestorsclub.com if you want to know more info, and I'll give you a deal. But I was like, I wonder if I don't want to say I want the vacancy right now, so I don't have to lock in some person that ends up not paying, and maybe it sounds weird in some ways. I say, well, maybe I know we want to go rush to get occupied, but then there's this, you can't evict if they don't pay. I don't know. Feels, it's confusing, right? Maybe I'm okay to have it be vacant for a minute and see what happens. I don't know. That seems counterintuitive. So I'm not pursuing that, but it crossed my mind with this eviction stuff in the city of Seattle,
Well, and then I think, again, it sends the wrong message. So, okay, so when we get past this, the next outbreak or the next, these are going to continue to happen, right? They always have throughout history. So it kind of sends a message, and it makes a little bit of a precedent, right? Of, well, so the next one comes, are we going to play this all over again? So I don't like that. I don't like it personally.
Well, let's just keep rolling down. So first we said, fill all your vacancies as soon as possible. Even if that means that you have to drop rents or consider shorter term leases while you're on those low rents. Or we talked about maybe coming up with creative language so somebody could be on a 12-month lease but with a step up in rent based on some creative measurement tool. I'd love to continue the discussion with you through your channels afterwards on that, Jennifer. We talked about renewing any month-to-month leases that you have. And next we're talking about maybe looking at getting HELOCs on your properties or your primaries to, boost your cash reserves. And in your opinion on that, Jennifer, on the HELOC thing, are you think that people should go ahead and pull the cash out on that? And because they have the risk of being, shut down or frozen if you don't? And what are you doing in that regard?
So I did draw mine. Yeah, I did draw mine on Monday.
And you're just sitting on the cash and, assuming that you're going to be looking hard for investment deals, right?
Absolutely.
Because what are you paying on that right now?
It just went down. It's going to go down again. So I'm waiting for the notice for it to go down. But I want to say I'm in the, maybe 4.5 or 5%. And then I think it should probably go down again.
Yep. And so obviously not everybody can do that, because you got to be able to make that payment. I guess, because you've drawn yours out, and a lot of big investors who have cash flow otherwise from their properties are doing just that, right?
Yes.
But, if you're not at that spot yet, then that's a different ballgame, right? So
Correct.
Still worth maybe teeing it up if you can.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you just, if it freezes, it freezes, right? Or draw as much out as you can handle.
Absolutely.
Right. Awesome stuff there. Okay. So how about this one, getting quotes to refinance any properties with 5% or higher interest? Maybe we need to educate people right now about, the fact that rates are bouncing around. Could look like it's lender by lender. Could be 3.25% one day with one lender and another lender's at, 4% or higher because of their pipeline.
Yeah.
Right?
So, this I sent out about a week ago, and then rates have, you're right, completely jumped all around. My opinion, and again, this is just my opinion, is I think probably in maybe 2-3 weeks, we'll start to see them back in the, 4s or maybe even the high 3s.
Right.
So I'm pausing right now on that.
Let's educate everybody though. So how that works, guys, is that this is how I explain it. That my friend Keith Pitch at Loan Depot is, educated me on how to think about it. So this is my layman's way of thinking about it. So the loans, let's say, are based off this 10-year treasury. I think about the 10-year treasury as like a stock that bounces up and down all day long, and at any moment in time during the day, it's at whatever number that it's at, right? It's just a snapshot in time. And when lenders go to rate lock, they log on to however they do that, and they grab that 10-year treasury rate lock when they're going to lock your rate at that moment, right? It's not out for the day. It bounces around all day. It's not like today it's at 1% and tomorrow it's at, 1.1%. It's by the moment. So they grab that, and then each lender adds their spread on top to come to your rate that gets locked. And what happens is, based on the lender's current pipeline of how many loans, what they can handle as far as workflow, or how many loans they have to sell and pool on the back end and sell their loans, determines how they adjust their spreads from day to day. And so when the lender's busy and they can't take on any more work, they pump their spreads up and the rates go up higher. When the lenders can handle more in their pipeline and they've comfortable that they've sold all their mortgages on the back end for the fees they need, then they lower their spreads, which means the rates go down. So it's lender by lender on where rates are. It isn't like you look somewhere and, across the board rates are 4% today. It depends on that lender's pipeline and where they are at in their own company business of getting their back end mortgages sold. Is that an accurate thing? So you want to get in line. Even if you have a lender that says, the rates aren't good today, get in line to refinance your properties, because as soon as their pipeline clears up in 30 days or 40 days, there's going to be a window of opportunity. And you literally need to just wait in line until you're at the front of the pack, where for that 3 or 4 days where they can load up on refinances, that you're in that group. Does that make sense?
Oh, Julie, that was probably the best explanation that I've ever heard, because it's confusing for people. So I think that was amazing. Bravo.
Yeah. And so one
Absolutely.
of the things that also happens is that all these lenders get paid, like, maybe somebody's getting paid a point to get a mortgage done. And how they do that, how they keep their employees paid, is they pool all these loans they're doing together and they sell them, right? Like mortgage, they sell them on the back end in pools of however many millions and millions of dollars, right? And a couple weeks ago, when they went to go sell it, let's say normally they might sell $50 million of loan and make 3% on the back, right? So they're making, what is that, 1.5 million. That's how they pay their bills and their people. Well, it got to a point where there were so many loans, it's like supply and demand on the back end. And they were only able to sell, let's say, their loans, instead of for a 3% fee on the back, they got half a point. So now they can't make their office payments and their payroll payments. So what do? They have to stop their pipeline until they can get, they have to adjust their workflow up and down. And they do that by making their spreads larger and smaller, right? So that's how it works, guys. So when they say, the interest rates are down to 0, that doesn't really mean anything, because the interest rates that we're all seeing is controlled by how much spread the lenders tack on top. And that has 100% to do with their own pipeline to service it and get it done, as well as sell their loans on the back so they can make their own payrolls. And that's what my friend Keith Pitch at Loan Depot educated me on. So thanks, Keith, for that. But yeah, that's how it goes, guys. So we are long on time today, and we're actually having a Seattle Investors Club online, our first mastermind meetup online today at 11:30. So we're getting ready to wrap up here, Jennifer. But is there anything, one last tip that you wanted to mention, I think, was that you said that you think it's going to be harder to find contractors to renovate properties. and maybe due to that, your vacancy times on your projects might be longer as well.
I do. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
It's hard to find them now. Right. And I can expect that being tough.
Is there anything else that you want to add? Let's talk about how people can, after today's podcast and before we have you on again, how they can plug into your group. What kind of masterminds and coaching and are you offering? How does that work? And how do people stay in touch? I'm telling you guys right now, if you're listening, you have if you don't sign up with Jennifer's group right now to keep plugged in on what's going on, just even plugging into her online communities that are free, you're nuts, because she is, working in markets across the country, as well as here out in the Seattle and Pacific Northwest area. And you have my full vote of confidence. And I hate to say that, normally I hate to give that kind of, blanket statement like that. But with you, I want to do that. And I appreciate you very much and what you're doing for all of us. And, the service that you're providing and educating for all of us, including myself. So anything you want to add on top before you tell us how we can all stay in touch with you over the next year or however long we can in our lives?
Yeah. Well, gosh. Well, geez. Thank you, Julie, so much. And yeah, I think if you guys, again, you want free content, we put a ton of free content out there, especially, I've, of course, canceled all of my vacation plans. So literally my team is every single day saying, okay, what do we need to put out there today? What do we need to tell people today? We want to be proactive. We want to be a voice of reason. As also during this crazy, crazy time that we're in, and we want to make sure that we are getting timely information out there for everyone to prepare for what's to come. And then also prepare to take advantage of any opportunities that come from this, right? So again, I remain very optimistic about, how things will end.
What I think would be helpful, Jennifer, is like on your Addicted to ROI community and stuff, publish successful closings going forward. When people are purchasing right now, and everybody follow along and be able to see that deals are still happening, right? Instead of, publicizing that so we can all see that it can be done and have that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I 100% agree. I love that. I think we covered so many different good nuggets here. So you guys can find me, as Julie had already mentioned, addictedtoroi.com. Agentsinvest.com is for anyone that wants to join our deal list. We are still putting deals out there. There's phenomenal deals to be done right now. So don't shy away from that. You can find everything online. If you guys have questions for me, you can also reach out at hello@agentsinvest.com.
And you have a master classes coming up. Is that, how do people get involved in that? Or how do you qualify to be in your master class? Or
Yeah, we actually just launched that yesterday. We said, gosh, people have been asking for kind of like coaching for a long time. And we said, let's just make it happen. So we're hosting two group coaching / masterclass sessions next week. So one is on Tuesday, one is on Thursday, and the Tuesday one is all about investing strategy. So investment property financing strategies on Tuesday, recession-proof investing strategies on Thursday. And then on Wednesday, I have our free masterclass, which is all about scaling and achieving a high return on equity for properties. So you guys can find those on our website, addictedtoroi.com, or also in our Facebook group.
And is there a limit on the number of people that can get in these master classes, or?
Yes. Yeah. So the Tuesdays and Thursdays, I think we have a few spots left on the Tuesday one. And then, we have some spots left on the Thursday one as well. And then Wednesday, we're capped at 100 people. I think we may have maybe 10 spots left on that one.
Is that because of your Zoom?
Yes.
Cap?
Yes.
Right. So sign up early, guys. And I know you're going to be continuing to do these, right? This isn't a one and done type of thing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we haven't even gotten into the recession-proof investing strategies and all of that. So that'll be for another day. But we're going to continue to put, great content out there for people.
I know I'll be jumping on there, guys, and I hope to see you on there as well. Jennifer, thank you so much. This is the start of a beautiful relationship here that we're going to be sharing you with all our listeners across this glorious United States. And thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to hearing everything you have to say going forward and keeping connected. And you guys, we can all make it through all this and make it through very well if we just stick together. That's it. Just stick together.
Absolutely.
Plug in, make this part of your everyday week to plug in. So thank you very much. We're going to link your survey, the questionnaire. We'll link it to the podcast here, as well as all the other goodness here, Joe. Where can people find the information about today's podcast, Joe?
Everything and all the links are over at SeattleInvestorsClub.com/110. That's SeattleInvestorsClub.com/110.
Awesome, guys. We at Seattle Investors Club have, several local meetup locations that we have been enjoying the last couple years here. And again, officially today, we have changed also to an online mastermind meetup. In that situation, what it is just like our in-person monthly meetups. We don't really have a topic at all. We're just going to get down there. We're going to see how it goes. We're probably going to screw it up a little bit. And that's going to be part of the fun. But we're going to get on there and talk to each other. We're starting today at 11:30, which is a Thursday. Today's March 19th. So if you're listening and you want to get on, we're going to be doing these every Thursday at 11:30 a.m. is what we're doing right now. And if you want to jump on and join us, we also probably are limited to 100. Is that right, Joe?
Yep. Right now we are.
Right now we're limited to 100, but all we're going to do is get in there and have a conversation and check in with each other, talk about whatever topic comes up like we normally do at our weekly in-person meetups. It might be crazy if, we have a bunch of people on there. We're going to just work through it as we go here and see if we can administratively come up with a good way to let everybody talk to each other that isn't chaos. But jump on the conversation, and we look forward to staying connected to you guys. All right. Be safe, be healthy, and enjoy the sunshine.
Thanks for listening to the Seattle Investors Club podcast. If you have questions that you'd like to have answered on the show, shoot us an email at info@SeattleInvestorsClub.com. Now go out, take that action, and build that real estate business. Thanks for listening.